All right, next we have a presentation on the enterprise program overview.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, Charter officials. For the record, my name is Camden Mills, and I have the pleasure of serving as your interim Public Works Director. This evening, I'd like to give an overview on our enterprise programs, which consist of our wastewater, our reclaimed water, and our stormwater. I'll touch on some of our level of service overview, some of the actions that are adopted in our budget and how we're meeting those or not meeting those level of service expectations. Go over our budgeted revenue and expenditures. We'll touch on our capital improvement plan, go over some of the preliminary damage assessment that we've collected so far to date associated with those utilities, discuss the current user fees, and then finally some areas of opportunity based on some of the observations that our team has had to date. So first I'll get into our Reclaimed Water program. At the top here you can see this mission statement that is included in our adopted budget, and our goal is to provide a high level quality service to our community. These action items listed here are taken directly from our adopted budget, and then I included a column here with either a check mark or an X mark on where we feel that we're satisfying that level of service criteria or not. As noted here, one of those action items is full service replacement of reclaimed laterals from the private water box up to the public main. Typically when we receive reports of leaks that are in need of repair, our goal would be to do that full service replacement just due to the age and condition of our infrastructure. Due to some limited resources in recent years, rather than the full service replacement, we've been moving just towards quick fixes and maintenance repairs through the county. So that's one item where I don't think we are meeting our current level of service. I'd note that our reclaim program currently services around 2,900 customers and delivers an average of about 2.8 million gallons per day of irrigation water to our community. In our comprehensive plan, we do have an initiative for potable water conservation. So I think that's what drives our Reclaimed Water program right now to limit that use of potable water and any dependency on the regional drinking water supply. In this next page here, I'll show you our current adopted revenue from our budget. And noted here in red is $400,000 from our general fund that helps supplement the revenue. So what we're showing here is the revenue that we collect through this program is not sufficient to meet the expenditures, so we're currently supplementing that with funds from our general fund. Long term, our goal will be to implement a rate structure that adequately exceeds operational needs and limits draws from our general fund as much as possible with the goal of being self-sustaining enterprise. Next, touching on what some of those adopted expenditures are. In total, that comes out to about $1.7 million for this current fiscal year. And then as compared here, you can see our revenue from that program is at about 1.6. So our revenues exceed our expenditures. The column here on the right is our level of service shortfalls. These are values that staff has identified that we would need and added to the expenditure amount in order to meet the level of service criteria that we want to provide. So really here there's two issues that we're identifying is one in the resources allocated, but also in the revenue collected. Next, I'll get into the capital program for the Reclaimed Water Fund. That is $400,000, and that consists of about 2% of our overall CIP program. These are the projects that we currently have budgeted in our fiscal 25 program, and that's where the $400,000 comes from. Just general repair and replacement of aging infrastructure. The pig port installation is associated with maintenance activities. And then here is our current reclaimed water user fees. Right now, we charge a basic service fee. Our reclaimed water is not metered, so it's not based on usage. So that's why right now it's just based on this flat fee per month. Next, I'll get into our stormwater program.
Yeah.
And again, so these are some of the adopted action
Camden.
items that define the level of service
Camden.
that's in our annual. Yes, sir.
Sorry. Why don't we pause at each category, see if the commissioners have any questions?
Sure.
And then we can move on to the next category.
Okay.
Commissioners, any questions on the reclaimed water?
I do have one quick question for you, Camden, on I think it's the slide before this one, talking about the budgeted CIP. Yeah, no, keep forward. Sorry, you went back a little too far. Yeah, there we go. So the $350,000 for repair and replacement, is that, is there like a feet of pipe or a number of structures that it serves, or is there any kind of context you can give for, you know, how much repair and replacement do you get for that $350,000?
I don't have that offhand. I can do some research to see in years past, you know, how much that extends. I do know, based on years past and historically, the amount that we spend in this fund, we typically request around 430 to like 450.
Okay,
This-
so it's about the same amount that we've spent in past years on the same activities.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And again, this doesn't include, or I might be wrong, it does include replacement of laterals?
So the replacement of laterals would come from that repair and replacement CIP program. The shortfall that I mentioned, where we typically ask for the 430 to 450, that's the delta to where now we don't do the full service replacements. We do the maintenance based on the resources.
Okay, thank you.
So based on these numbers, it looks like the general shortfall every year is the maintenance that we have to do on the pipes and the whole system.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So the amount of money that comes in is equal the amount of money that we get charged for the wastewater, for the reclaimed water.
The money that comes in,
So the $25 per house,
right?
right, covers what we get charged for the water, correct? So we don't collect enough money to also pay for the maintenance. We only get enough money to pay for the water that's being used.
That's correct. Yep. The money we collect from our user fees is not included with this 400,000. Currently, we're using the general fund for this 400,000.
And not to put you on the spot, I know you just showed up in this position, so I'm not in any way, you know, if there's any blame to be put on anyone, well, you know, today's not the blame game. But this $400,000 is just patching, right? We're not actually fixing this problems, the underlying problems. We're just patching it so the system can continue to be, just be serviceable. But we're not actually making any progress, because my understanding is, you know, it blows up, we go and patch it, and then 6 months or 2 years later, same one blows up again, because we're not actually making any progress in addressing the overall problems of the system.
That's correct. So typically, in reviewing years past, it seems like, you know, through quarters 1 and quarter 2 through fiscal year, we are able to move forward with that full service replacement. And then as we're analyzing the budget and seeing, you know, what we're expending based on what is left, towards the end of that year in quarter 3, quarter 4, that's when we adjust our level of service to be more towards the maintenance repairs rather than the full service replacements.
Okay, so then if you go back to your very first slide, right, where you talked about right here, right, the big X at the bottom, what number would we need to actually do full service replacement rather than patching?
We would need approximately about $80,000 more a year.
Okay, so we're short $400,000 every year, and another $80,000 would move us from patching to fixing?
Correct.
Okay. So I hate asking why questions, but how come we're not spending the extra $80,000 to make sure that the system gets fixed rather than just patched together every year?
If we had the funds, we would continue to move forward with the full service replacements. But when we get towards the end of the year and we're at our resource limit, that's when we adjust our level of service.
Okay. So based on the 3,000 roughly homes that are you at some point going to provide a proposal that says, or is that something that we're doing in the future? Today or in the future?
Oh, in the future. So that's part of all the fee studies
Okay.
we're looking at, is what does it cost to run the system?
Okay. So we've got 3,000 homes or users. We're charging $25 a house, and we're short 500,000 roughly every year.
Rough numbers, I'd have to do some calculations to confirm that. But yeah, that's an area of opportunity that we see where a rate study, a comprehensive rate analysis where they look at our asset management program, look at our capital program, and structure the fees based on that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, could I ask one quick question? So is, Mr. Mills, is $25 per residence? Is that what I heard?
Correct, and commercial properties and multifamily are currently that same rate too.
So condo building with 50 units in it pays $25?
For their first ERU, and then there's an additional $25 fees for every equivalent residential unit on top of that.
And that's monthly.
Monthly, correct.
So what about, I almost hate getting into this, but what about a 300-unit hotel? What do they pay?
They would pay, that base fee and then whatever equivalent, residential unit that it comes to. So if that 300 units is 300 ERUs, then they would pay, 25 for that first ERU and then another $25 for the additional 299 ERUs.
So 25 per or in total?
25 for a commercial property is just for that first equivalent
I
residential.
understand that. I got that.
And for every additional unit is another $25.
Okay, so if they had 100 units, it would be $200 or $2,500.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
If they had 100 ERUs, correct?
If they had 100 ERUs.
Which
yeah.
is not, it's like roughly
Yeah, it's not, the ERUs isn't
90%.
always equivalent to exactly to a unit. There's different calculation based on property usage, but in generality, yes.
Thank you.
So then to touch on our stormwater program. So the first action item, level of service, is implementing a comprehensive system maintenance plan, including inspection, cleaning, and maintenance of assets. For this category, we do have developed the system and maintenance plan. Where our shortfalls are is in the implementation of that. Currently, the assets that our stormwater includes is all of our storm drains, all of our underground pipes, our outfalls, our tide check valves, baffle boxes, as well as retention ponds. And in the other two categories, we are currently meeting the adopted level of service for. And these, next we'll get into the stormwater fund budget, and again you'll see a similar theme here where we do have to draw from our general fund to help supplement the revenue that's collected from these utility fees. And again, our long-term goal would be to implement a rate structure that adequately services this fund, so we can be as self-sustaining as we can. This shows some of our stormwater fund expenditures that's budgeted for this year, currently at $4.6 million. And then below here you can see the number that was drawn from the previous slide, that our revenue is $2.5 million. So again, the expenditures exceed the revenues. And then to meet the level of service, we are showing an additional $226,000 that would be added on top of that $4.6 million to meet all of our level of service needs. And then this is our capital improvement program showing the stormwater fund. Currently we have $3.1 million of capital projects budgeted. That comes out to about 14% of our overall CIP program. And then on this slide, I show the stormwater projects that are currently budgeted for this fiscal year. You'll note that first project, the Watershed Management Master Plan, I included that on here because it's associated with stormwater, but that is funded from our resiliency fund, which is from our general fund. But the rest of these projects here, you can see. The Don Cesar outfall improvements, that project does include a $625,000 grant associated with it. Next, I'll touch on some of the preliminary damage assessment that we've collected so far from these storms. The overall damage that we've identified at this point for our stormwater system is about 4% of the overall damage that we've collected. That total dollar figure for the stormwater damage is about $950,000. There's two components with that, well, three. One is associated with cleaning and televising our entire underground stormwater system and doing an asset inventory to update our asset management program, as well as making repairs to the one stormwater pump station that we currently have that's down in Paso Grill that sustained some damage from the flooding. Getting into our stormwater rates, we have two tiers. One is on a per parcel basis. It's an annual fee. And then the other, tier 2, is variable based on equivalent residential units. As I understand, these rates were recently adopted in a resolution 2024-04. And next, I'll open it up with any questions on our stormwater program.
Thank you, Camden. Commissioners, any questions? Don't be shy. All right. If you wouldn't mind just going back to the first slide, and we'll walk through a couple of those items.
Yes, sir.
And it's going to feel like I'm putting you on the spot here, Camden. And I guess in the way I am, recognizing that you're not responsible for the issues that we currently have, but we're certainly going to be relying on you to help fix them, right? Mm-hmm. So when you say implement a comprehensive system maintenance plan, what what items would fall under that?
That's a great question. So that would be reactive maintenance, so dealing with work orders as issues come up on a daily basis, but also preventative maintenance. Preventative maintenance side, some key components with that would be our tie check valves and our baffle boxes that are at our outfalls. Currently, we have two workers in our stormwater department, and they are pretty much dedicated to reactive type maintenance. Historically, looking at previous budgets, preventative maintenance was accomplished through contracts, where we had different contracted services that helped out with that routine maintenance. As I understand, the last couple of years, those contracts have not been in place. So that's something that we're going to be working on advertising, getting those secured so we can meet the needs of our preventative maintenance as well.
So from a level from 0 to 100% over the last, I don't know, 5 years or so, how much preventative maintenance have we been doing?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. I'd have to do a little more
Would you
research.
say
on
we're
that.
meeting our expectations for preventative maintenance, or we're not?
I would say we're not. As I understand, I think it's been at least 2 years since we've had a contract in place for our tie check valve cleaning and our baffle box cleaning. And that is, affects some of our outfalls in our lowering line neighborhoods. So I think we fell short of that currently.
Okay, so just want to make sure that I understand what you're saying. So if I'm not repeating it correctly, please correct me. Have we done any maintenance on our baffle boxes and outfall in the last 2 years?
To my understanding, we have not done that preventative maintenance on those structures. After these storm impacts, we hired, we used state resources through a mission request to have a contractor clean some of those baffle boxes. And based on, the conditions of those looking at it, I think it's been some time since those have been serviced.
Okay. Were you under the impression that those items were being taken care of, and we just found out after the storm that, gosh darn, we haven't been doing anything for 2 years?
No, I think our team was aware that preventative maintenance was lacking.
Okay. So the reason I'm keep hammering this point is because I think this is an important point for the commission, the public to understand is that we've been told for years that our systems are great, that we're doing, continual maintenance. I mean, how many conversations have we had about flooding? And we're told everything's doing great, it's just, we're not sure where it's coming from. And then there's no maintenance on the tie check valves?
As I understand, in my time here, that we haven't been conducting that preventative maintenance on
Okay,
tie
so
check.
again, I want the public to hear this as well, understand this, right? Because you were told the same things that we were told. And if it wasn't for the storm, and if it wasn't for having a new city manager and a new interim public works director, who are actually looking into all of these things, I mean, we're not engineers. We're not out in the field here, the commission. We're broad information, and based on the information that we're provided with, we have to make decisions. And the information that we've been told for years is, we're doing all the routine maintenance that has to be done. We're not sure why these things are constantly failing. Well, here's your answer. If I sound mad, it's because I am mad.
I understand.
And I'm not, and Cam, you're in an unenviable position to have to stand here, and I feel bad that you have to answer these questions knowing that you did not cause these problems. But I applaud you for being here and answering these questions directly. If you don't mind moving on to the next slide.
Sure.
Mayor, can I add one more thing in that? Because I did hear Camden say, Mr. Mills say that if anything, it hasn't been an effective maintenance or consistent maintenance. It's always been reactive. Because I agree with Mayor, how many times have we talked about Paso Grill, Don Cesar, Bella Vista,
Yep.
On and on, many, many emails, but I know it hasn't been consistent maintenance or repair. It's always been reactory, not a schedule. I don't think I've ever seen consistent maintenance. I don't even know if 2 years prior, I don't know what that contract even looked like. The outfalls, I think, were constructed or were under construction during that time, but had been told the importance of having to maintain them and then knowing that they hadn't been, right? So when we approve as a city outfalls, it was always asked, well, what's the money to maintain them? Because we're putting all this new stuff out there, but we are not budgeting what the true maintenance, consistent maintenance, not reactory, it's, the barnacles are growing.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. And I know you guys went out recently, maybe it was 2 weeks ago or something like that, to try to clean them out to see if we can get these things working again. Now, of course, we have damage as well, so I'm sure you're finding that out, but that our city truly doesn't have a budget, which I think is what you're trying to tell us, is we don't have a true budget, staff positions that just work on maintaining and cleaning every outfall, stormwater drain out there all the time on a weekly basis.
I agree with you, and my concern is, right, the staff comes to us every year and says, here's the money that we need, here's the projects that we need to work on, here's what it's going to take, right?
Yeah.
Have you've been
Yes,
paying
sir.
attention and watching for a long time, and I've seen you before from there and now from here, always talking about flooding, tie check valves and so on. Have you heard at any point that we've got a $2 million annual deficiency?
No. Oh, not for maintenance, no.
No, just in general, for the stormwater program, we're looking at what, $2.5 million deficiency, right? And that's not including what it would take to actually get us to doing a good job, another $226,000 a year, right? The information that we've been fed as a commission, whether intentionally or through negligence or incompetence, I don't know, has not been accurate. Because you're the first person that I've been here for almost 2 years now, and at no point has anyone come and said, hey, we're missing $2 million to actually do a good job for this. And we've got, 3, 4 things we're going to look at today, and the first one was short $500,000. This one is short $2.5 million if we were supposed to do it correctly.
Yes.
Right? So
And
how
my
are we
team's
supposed to make
goal-
good decisions if we don't get, and I appreciate you bringing us good information, okay? I do not envy you being in that seat right now, but I appreciate it. It can't be easy, and I do thank you, because this is the information that we actually need to be able to make. Think about all the decisions we've made in the last 2 years. Based on everything is great, and we haven't gotten to the sewer system yet, right?
Get ready.
Okay. We'll come back about the decisions we've made the last 2 years based on all this information, or lack thereof, or misinformation.
And Mr. Mill, is it safe to say that 2.5 million is really not what we need, right? You're talking about a shortfall. You're not giving us, this is what we need to fix the maintenance issue, right? Like how much it would cost staff, how much it would cost equipment to really go out there and maintain all the outfalls and stormwater. Like, that's not the budget that we're missing, correct?
So what's shown here is that the expenditures that we have planned is 4.6 million. That exceeds our revenue. So that's where the $2 million difference is there. The $226,000 shown, that's the need to get us to be able to provide the high quality level of service that our budget adopts. I will note that we do have some budgeted positions in the stormwater department, so we'll be adding 2 more people there, and we're also going to be pursuing some competitive contracts to get contractors on board to help supplement the maintenance as well. And our team's goal is to be, this isn't news that I'd like to share with you either, but we want to be as clear as possible and make sure that you guys are aware of the resources that we think is needed to provide the level of service that our community desires.
And then I appreciate that. And then, again, realizing that you've been in your position 5 months,
Yes, sir.
city manager less than that, right? And you're coming in here stumbling into this information, and I appreciate you bringing it to us. And as much as we don't want to air out dirty laundry, I think it is important for the community to get a clear picture, because a lot of these things came to light as a result of what's happened during the 2 storms. And I think it's important for the community to see exactly what the true picture is of some of these systems. So thank you for that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
So, just a couple words, Mr. Mills. 1, I hope you don't burn out. And 2, keep speaking the truth. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you.
So next we'll get into our wastewater program. Again, same mission statement, providing a high quality level of service to our community. You'll see some of the first adopted action items that we feel that we're currently deficient in our level of service needs. And that is, develop and implemented a pipe inspection program, a manhole inspection program, and as well as addressing our fats, oils, and grease. I will say on items 2 and 3, we have developed a comprehensive manhole and pipe inspection program. Where we currently fall short is on the implementation of that. And on the fats, oils, and greases, that's another item that we haven't been addressing recently. We do have an open position for an inspector that'll help us satisfy that program moving forward. Our wastewater program, there's a lot of infrastructure associated with that, about 2.8 miles of force main, about 41.5 miles of gravity lines, over 750 manholes, 3 master pump stations, and then 18 lift stations. So in total, the revenues and expenditures associated with this program services that infrastructure. I will note, as I understand, back in 2016, we were operating beyond our capacity at about 130%, which resulted in some sanitary sewer overflows and environmental impacts. That led to a consent order from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and ultimately on a moratorium on further development. Since then, there was a force main improvement project that really updated the backbone of our transmission system, and including some lift stations and, as I mentioned, the force main. And the goal of that was to improve for build out of our community redevelopment district. However, I would note that the system does not currently have full capacity to build out all of the island's parcels per our comprehensive plan due to the limitations at the bottleneck, which would be our master pump station
Is
1.
your slide current?
These are just outcome points.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry. Can you repeat that last thing you just said? Our system is where?
That was just noting back some back in 2016 that we reported that we were over capacity. Since then, we did the Forest Main Improvement Project and constructed 3 additional lift stations. The goal of that was to improve capacity in our system. And I would note, right now, the pump station 1 is our limited, the bottleneck in our system that limits our capacity. So right now, we could not fully build out to, all the limitations within our comp plan on parcels across the island until that master pump station 1 is upgraded.
So at the current level where we're at today of units on the island, what capacity are we running at right now?
As far as like a percentage-wise,
You said you were running 130% previously,
Exactly.
right? So today, based on, you said we couldn't build out to full capacity. So right now, with the number of units that we have, what capacity are we running at?
I'd have to go through some further data and follow up with you on that number of exactly how much capacity we have in our system. I know that Forest Main project did add quite a bit of capacity to allow for some redevelopment in that community redevelopment district. But that exact number on where we're at, I'll have to do some research and follow up with you on.
Okay, I'm going to hold you to that.
Yes, sir.
That is a number that I think it'd be important to understand,
Okay.
because we do have some big decisions coming before the commission in the next couple of weeks and months that will be impacted by that number.
Understood.
And again, you said that the new Forest Main was beneficial to the redevelopment district. How does that impact on the residentials?
It has an impact on them too, because that Forest Main ultimately feeds to our master pump station 1, so that improved system-wide capacity. And an observation that we're noting here is really the lacking of the implementation of preventative maintenance again, and keeping up with our asset management planning, and just being short on resources from a funding, personnel, and contractual standpoint. I want to note in fiscal year 24, it's reported that we accomplished about 10% of our preventative maintenance work orders through the fiscal year. So again, in this program, very reactionary based on the resources we currently
That was
have.
this year?
Last year,
So 23?
or the fiscal year
Okay,
24.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
So we did 10% of what we know to be required for maintenance.
Preventative maintenance, extending the useful life of the infrastructure we have. We have been well at keeping up with the reactionary maintenance
course.
side of things, but again, due to funding, personnel, and lack of contracts in place, that's fell short. Here is again the revenue from our adopted budget, similar theme that we draw from our general fund to help supplement the program. This $3.8 million is dedicated to that master pump station 1 rehabilitation. When large capital projects happen over time, it's not untypical to draw from your general fund, but not something that we plan to do every year. Our goal, like with reclaiming stormwaters, we want this to be as self-sustaining as we can. This shows some of the budgeted expenditures in fiscal year 25, totaling about $15.3 million. In order to meet the level of service that's adopted, we're forecasting that we would need an additional $1.6 million. And then you can see here on the bottom that the revenue collected from our wastewater fund is only $9.4 million. So again, some of the observations is just shortfalls in both resources allocated and the revenue collected. Next, I'll get into our capital improvement plan for our wastewater fund. We currently have $7.3 million budgeted in our CIP. This equates to about 31% of our capital improvement program. Here are some of the current projects that we have budgeted in fiscal year 25 that make up that $7.3 million. the biggest of which is that Master Pump Station 1. It's also important to note here, Force Main 1 improvements for $40,000. Those $40,000 is to complete the remaining of the preliminary engineering study that's being conducted for the Force Main 1 replacement. And in future fiscal years, we will ask for design on that and then eventually construction. That may be the pipeline that Vice Mayor was mentioning earlier, but that's a project that will be a very big project that will be coming to you guys in short time. Next, I wanted to touch on our wastewater pump station 1 and some of the funding specifically tied to that. We have a Florida Department of Economic Opportunity Job Growth Grant associated with this project that's providing $2 million of funds. Here's the timeline, just a brief overview. From my understanding of this project, in 2022, we were awarded the grant from FDEO. In March and May of 2024, we amended the grant agreement to ask for some extensions as well as refining some of the scope. In October of 2023 or of 2024, our city manager reported to you that that grant was terminated. And on November 4th, the FDEO agreed to reinstate that grant. They agreed to reinstate that grant under 2 compliance conditions, one of which is that we provide proof of all purchase orders associated with the drawdown of that $2 million by February 1st of 2025, and that we also provide all reimbursement requests by April 11th, 2025. It's important to note a good chunk of that $2 million is associated with equipment that the city is directly procuring, that we do have purchase orders for, and that we've submitted it to FDEO. So once those payments are fulfilled, we'll submit our reimbursement requests. Staff does not currently have any objections to these 2 conditions. But one thing I'd like to bring to your attention is some of the job growth metrics that is tied to this grant. So after completion of construction, up until December 31st, 2034, we have to track performance metrics to show that we're meeting the goals of FDEO, and that's what's shown here. Minimum private capital investment of over $250 million and the creation of over 1,300 jobs that we can show that this project added capacity to our system, allowed for redevelopment, and then we track that and submit that to FDEO. And then on this slide, this shows some of the redevelopment projects that were associated with this grant application. So currently, unless we receive direction otherwise, we are moving forward with administering this grant. Next, I'll get into the preliminary damage assessment associated with 2 hurricanes for our wastewater system. That comes out to about 35% of the damage that we've collected to date. And that comes out to about $7.6 million. A majority of that damage was from Helene, sustained from the flooding. That was damage to some of our electrical components that were submerged from the water and rendered inoperable. And from Milton, we received some minimum damage from there. I'd like to note that we have ordered some temporary control panel replacements for those panels that have been damaged directly from our manufacturer. The goal from that is to get the 5 bypass pumps that are still currently online to be back to pre-storm conditions. We anticipate that the installation will be operational within 2 months on those systems. We're still waiting on lead time from that manufacturer. But those temporary control panels will allow us to keep the system operational and functioning, but we will still need to move forward with permanent panel replacements, which need to be built by the manufacturer. The lead time that we're expecting on that is about 8 to 12 months.
Would we be looking to raise the height for those
Yep.
control panels?
We are, yep. On some of our critical lift stations, we're proposing to add some mitigation measures and to be a little bit more resilient. The goal there is to be able to, when we are impacted by a storm, to be able to bring back online some of our critical infrastructure like our fire station, City Hall, Public Works as quickly as possible. On here, showing some of the damage to our Master Pump Station 1. To date, we've performed about $131,000 of emergency repair work. The remaining work left to get that to pre-storm conditions is about $1.9 million. And this lift station facility is insured. So we'll be pursuing insurance claims. We'll also be submitting our damage assessments to FEMA. Our 20 other lift stations, the emergency work conducted today is about $450,000. The remaining work is about $3 million. So in total, we're about $3.4 million worth of damage sustained to that infrastructure. The insured value shown on here at $1.9 million is for lift stations 2 and 3. We're currently coordinating with our insurance company to see of the other 18 lift stations are also insured as well. And we've submitted our damage assessment to FEMA. So as we work through our process of storm recovery, when we start to get more concrete numbers from our insurance and FEMA, we'll be sure to share that with the commission. And the last damage component is our underground pipe system and our manholes. We're proposing $2 million to do a cleaning and flushing and televising of our system. And lastly here, I'll get into our wastewater user fees. So as you can see, these fees were recently adopted in Ordinance 2024-06. These are monthly rates that are the same for residential and commercial usage. As you can see in the previous slide, the revenue that's collected, and I know these fees were recently updated, but not too much different than what they were previously. So believe, we still have a shortfall between what we're collecting and what we plan on expending based on providing a high level of service. Would you like to take some questions now, or would you like me to touch on some of the areas of opportunity?
Let's do questions.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, Mr. Mills, you may be getting to this. I didn't participate in the early budget process this year. I wish I had have, but I didn't. So our fees for sewer, how we pump it to St. Petersburg, just so I understand things, and it looks like we base our rates based on the number of gallons we pump over there. Is that how we base our rates?
I currently couldn't tell you exactly how those rates are based off of. From my understanding, I don't believe like a comprehensive rate study has been conducted recently, so I'm not sure exactly how those rates were determined.
Yeah, I thought there was more to the matrix than just gallons, so I was just trying to understand that. I thought maybe you knew, but
I think it's water usage. I mean, that I know because I was just hit on my bill significantly, which I need to appeal, because we haven't used as much water at my house, and it is by usage and through that tier rate.
Right, but I was just trying to understand I believe St. Petersburg charges us on a different matrix, but I don't know the answer to that. That's why
They do.
asking.
I just don't have those values on
Okay.
here.
Well, I think that's something we probably moving forward need to understand. I think we've all operated under the assumption that it's based on gallons. I certainly have, and maybe it is, but I think there's more to that matrix than maybe we all think. And I think we probably moving forward, because we've got a lot of decision. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. You know better than anybody. There's a lot of work and a lot of money that's needed here, and it's not all going to come in the form of insurance or FEMA or the like. So we're going to, in the next several months, have to be taking some hard look at a number of things. So I'd like to maybe understand that a little bit better, just what that full matrix is. Is it just strictly gallons, or is there more to that story? And I sense that there may be more to that story, and I think we need to understand that before we start making budget decisions moving forward.
Understood. Yes, the monthly rate charged to the residential and commercial is based on gallons usage, but how we set that rate, that should be based on maintenance needs and capital needs and include, different components
Well, and also what we're charged, right? Because there is,
and what we're charged.
right, because there's not a direct linkage between a resident's gallons and what the city's getting charged from St. Petersburg for sewage. Is that not correct? I thought there was more to that story that apparently none of us fully understand, but I at least have a sense that maybe there's something else there.
It is based on gallons that we send to St. Pete, the charge that they send to us. But our overall rate structure, it should encapsulate that, what we have to pay St. Pete, but it should also incur, maintenance and capital needs.
So they only charge us based on gallons?
Yes, as I understand, but I'll
Yeah, I think-
confirm that and follow
Yeah,
up.
maybe if you could clarify that.
Okay.
'Cause, I don't know. If I knew, I wouldn't be asking the question, but I think there may be more to that story.
Okay.
Want to go back to slide 1? Actually, let's the pump station one's as good a place as any. Okay. What was the condition of pump station 1 before the storm?
It was in need of replacement. It was near the end of its useful life, so that we did have a CIP project programmed for rehabilitation at that. So,
And you mentioned earlier that the bottleneck is, one of the bottlenecks is pump station 1?
correct. All sanitary sewer flows on the island ultimately go to that master pump station 1 before it's discharged off the island to St. Pete.
Just correct me if at any point my analogy falls apart here. But so, before we did the undergrounding project, or the sewer project on Gulf Boulevard, we essentially had one gravity-fed line servicing all of St. Pete Beach, and that went to pump station 1.
I think it was a force main that fed to pump station 1, but
It was still a
yeah.
but it was a single line, right? So then we doubled the capacity, or we increased the capacity, whether it was double or whatever it was, when we added the west side of Gulf Boulevard with a new sewer line.
That was associated with that force main improvement project, yes.
And, the hole at pump station 1 remained the same, right? So whether we have 2 lines, 5 lines, or 100 lines, they all terminate at pump station 1.
Correct.
Okay. So the capacity is bottlenecked by this pump station. And that we knew was at the end of its effective life, at least 2 years ago, if we base it on the grant request.
I think that'd be safe to assume.
Okay. And then the work that we're doing now is $130,000 already expended, another $1.9 million to be spent. That's to bring it back to where it was 60 days ago.
It does. There is some overlap between new components. So some of the replacement parts that would be components that were damaged from the storm that need replacement, or also same components that we were proposing to replace as part of that project.
Okay. So once we replace pump station 1, so the last person who stood here before us told us we have all the capacity that we could ever need. Now that seems to contradict what you said about 5 minutes ago, that we couldn't possibly build out everything that we have in the comprehensive plan allowed.
Not until that pump station 1 is upgraded.
Currently, where we're at today,
Currently.
we do not have the capacity. Okay.
Correct.
Right. The reason I keep harping on this point is, again, this is important for the public to understand, that this commission, including 3 of us who are here today, have made decisions based on the information that we were told about the capacity of our sewer system at the time of the application, not in the future, once the repair work was done. Okay. I can't speak for the other commissioners who voted differently than I did, so I don't know what they would have done if they had different information. But the reality is we all relied on that information to make those decisions. And now the information that we find out, it is vastly different from what we were told. And we haven't even gotten to the fun parts yet, right? So when you look at, you know, we keep talking about a pipeline. It's not a pipeline, right? It's a sewer line.
Correct, yep.
And that sewer line is, because we've talked about money that we're short, money that we need immediately, and then there is money that we're going to need in the very near future. I mean, those are your words. You said in the very near future, you're going to be bringing information to us about the pipeline or the sewer line that goes from Pump Station 1 across the bay, correct?
Correct.
When you say in the near future, are you talking the next 6 months, in the next 6 years?
Less than 6 years. So currently in our budget, we were projecting to have that construction take place in fiscal year 2029. I would propose that we try to expedite that to be as soon as we can, up in maybe fiscal year 28, which will give us some time to complete the design.
Okay, so you're talking about finishing the project in 28 or starting in 28?
Starting.
Okay, starting in 28, okay. I've asked this question to the person who was standing here before 3 times over the last 12 months. This exact same question. And the answer I got the last 3 times was 8 to 10 years. Not 4 years, 8 to 10 years. And the last time I asked that question was in April. Decisions were made in this city based on the information that we received from Public Works and from the city manager's office. Not the current city manager, not the current interim Public Works director, right? There's a big distinction here. Rough idea of what that pipeline is going to cost?
About $15 million currently is what was shown in the budget. I have not reviewed the preliminary analysis done where different alternatives would be considered. But I would say, $15 million is probably a ballpark to chew on for now. But with that, I think we also need to, consider some resiliency and possibly some redundancy in our system.
Okay, so 15 million for the replacement sewer line from Pump Station 1, 6.5 million for Pump Station 1?
Correct.
How much for the other preventative maintenance to raise the lift stations, electrical and everything else?
That is a good chunk of that $2.9 million shown here for remaining work
Okay,
and mitigation measures.
So 3 million, 6.5 million, we're 10 million, plus 15 million, we're $25 million, and we have a $2.5 million annual budgetary deficit. Okay, so we're not even meeting our current obligations, and somehow in the next 5 years, we've got to come up with $25 million. That was not a question for you.
Summarizing.
I'm just, thank you, I'm summarizing it, okay. If you don't mind going to the first slide. And I'm going to apologize if I sound mad, it is because I am actually livid would probably be more appropriate. So you're telling us we're doing roughly 10% of the maintenance that we know we should be doing, preventative maintenance. Okay. So we're not even, forget doing the maintenance, we're not even inspecting our pump stations, we're not inspecting our manholes, we're not inspecting our pipes.
We are inspecting our lift stations, but our manholes and pipes we can improve on.
Okay. So we're not even doing the basic inspection to find out if we need to be doing preventive maintenance.
And that's something we have proposed in our current fiscal year budget is to do televising with a camera of our sewer system, and based on the results, an engineer will look at that and analyze and develop our long-term maintenance and repairs based on the results of that.
Now, with the exception of Mr. Mulholland, but you've also been paying attention for a long time, most of you have been either on boards or actively involved in the city. To your knowledge, have you ever heard, because in my recollection, I keep hearing the opposite, that, hey, we're doing everything we're supposed to be doing. Yeah, we could use an extra staff person, that'd be great, but really, for all intents and purposes, no one's coming asking for more staff because we don't have the resources or the people to do the inspections. No one's telling us we need more resources and more money. No one said, hey, we're short $2.5 million a year. Right? So, again, as Commissioner Mulholland said, I appreciate the truth, and I thank you for it. But the reality is we've been making decisions at the very best incomplete information, if not downright deceptive information. I wish I could read my own handwriting. On the, if you wouldn't mind going forward a couple slides, to the grant. One back. Okay. So we received a grant 2.5 years ago, because 2.5 years ago, well, we received a grant 2.5 years ago because probably 3 or 4 years ago, we knew that pump station 1 was deficient. Then we've amended the grant, and then in October, the grant was terminated. Can you please explain to the commission and to the public the circumstances under which the grant was terminated?
The circumstances on which the grant was terminated was based on the fact that we had not provided any drawdowns on that $2 million up to date. So FDEO was concerned that the fact that we had not submitted any requests for reimbursements up to that point, that they weren't going to be able to obligate the funds and on their side of things. So,
Sounds like we were derelict on paperwork.
I think at that point we hadn't exhausted the funds yet. We recently just secured those purchase orders for that equipment that I mentioned, just in the time frame that I've been here.
Okay. But a simple phone call to them would have been like, hey, we're working on this, you know. So what caused them to take a drastic step to the point that they say we're going to terminate your $2 million grant?
Based on not being able to, not requesting any funds. And I'd like to note, too, those amendments that were done prior. Originally, this grant was slated to be complete, I believe, in June of 2024. So that was one of their main concerns was, you know, we were past that date of the original grant and hadn't shown any progress on that.
So this grant is tied to Pump Station 1, right? So generally the way it happens, just for the public, right, you say you have a project you want to work on, you want to replace a pump station. The first thing you do is you go get plans and engineering done, right? Design.
Correct.
You have your design, then you go out and you get bids, right? You get bids, you bring them before the commission looks at the bids, they vote, and they approve one of the bids, and then work commences. So in this 4-stage process, where are we today?
In this process, the design plans are completed. The construction contract has been awarded, and now we are in the process of procuring materials. And then once those, some of them are long lead items, and once those are closer to being to deliver is when we'll break ground on construction. But we do have the contractor secured and are regularly meeting with them.
So this was based on the original grant application. We were supposed to be done with this project 6 months ago. And so far, we haven't even finished procuring all the materials that we need to break ground.
Correct.
Okay. And I know you all think, why does he keep harping on about this? I want you to understand exactly the situation that we're facing and where we are in the city. And kind of how we got here today. You know? On the fees, which I think is next up. Okay. I know we looked at this briefly during the budget session, but again, the city manager came in 2 weeks prior to that meeting, so that budget wasn't yours. Our finance director came in after that. Based on the numbers that you're telling us, so you're saying these are expenses and here are receivables, right? Roughly, we take in about half of what we need. Right, so we would have to double the fees to get to 100% of what our expenses are. Is that a relatively fair assessment? Am I way off, or?
I think that in generality, I think that's a fair assessment. You know, part of that that would need to be considered is, you know, long-term maintenance and replacement of other
Of course.
projects. But
Yeah, that just gets us to breaking even on the budget, not the additional money that you had for us to be doing our preventative maintenance and inspections and everything else.
correct.
Right. Okay. So we were sitting here at the budget meeting in July, and we the proposal came that we increase these fees by a certain amount. The amount that we increased them by, I have to go back, and it was dollars, $2 or $3 a month, not double. And the reason we did that is because we were told if we increase it by this amount, it's going to cover 50% of the shortfall, or a number close to that. And forgive me, I genuinely don't remember the exact number. But the decision of the commission at that time was based on the numbers that we were given. The numbers that we were given, based on the numbers that we have today, either your numbers are way off, or the numbers from several months ago are way off. Your numbers don't help you in any way at all. So I'm more inclined to take your very, very ugly numbers as being closer to the reality than the fairy tale that we were sold 6 months ago. Okay. I know your next slide was, after these, was kind of looking at what the future holds, and but before we get there, I just want to see if any of the commissioners have any more questions based on this just shockingly disturbing information that is before us.
I have a question. On the subaqueous line, I know you're saying we're now slated for 2028, 4 years from now is what you're looking at. What is the projected end of life on that line?
I would need to check on, I haven't reviewed the preliminary engineering study on that, on what those projections are. A subaqueous type of line may have a shorter lifespan, but I would think we would be shooting for like a 40, 50-year range. But I'll confirm that and follow up.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Robinson, were you asking about the lifespan of the one that's currently in place, or the one that it
No,
would be
the one that's
replaced with?
currently in place.
Oh, the one that's currently in
Yes.
place.
Yes.
That one is near the end of its useful life. Yes, yep.
Is that projected at 2029? Are we getting really close to that?
My understanding is around 6 years
Okay.
from now.
So we're going to start this in 4 years with a 2-year, but not really, because it'll be 2029 by the time it's completed. So we'll be within a year of basically what we're saying, the 6-year lifespan.
Correct, but let me confirm that 6-year number and follow up
Thank
with you.
And I do remember in the presentation, it was 20 years. Okay, it was in that 20 year, because I remember asking, aren't we using cameras to look at that? And we were told, not yet, but we had told before that they had been inspected or were being inspected. And I know it was around the 20-year range, because that's what threw me off. We were trying to approve these fees, which I wasn't very happy to have to do. Anyways, another question, just to kind of think of the future, is I don't know what you might be proposing, but because you said it bottlenecks, right, at Pump Station 1. Since you're new here as an engineer, do you propose maybe doing something different? Like, why are we going to continue to bottleneck everything? If we have 2 lines running down Gulf Boulevard, why not have another pump station and I know this is money, But again, I'm thinking if the life of it is 40, 50 years, then we'd be talking about this again, that it's bottlenecking and doing the same thing. And maybe then we've added more capacity already to that line. So are we going to try to plan so we're not continuing to do the same thing?
I think as part of when we review that preliminary engineering study that's done in different alternatives, I think one of the alternatives that should be considered is redundancy. So we're not dependent just on one station or one line. Of course, there's additional costs associated with that, but I think that from a benefit cost standpoint, that's something that should be analyzed and will be analyzed.
Do you know if this is one of the priorities that might have been mentioned? We had the lobbyist speaking to us earlier today and mentioned priorities from the city, but is this one of the things that, okay, I see the nodding on that
So
side.
I have submitted initially an appropriations focus on this pipeline to across the bay, as well as Fire Station 22. So those are the two I've raised right now as most critical.
Could I clarify one thing? And Commissioner Rosnicki was just asking about the, what are we doing if we're going to have the same bottleneck? And I want to make sure I understand this correctly, that the bottleneck is pump capacity, not the size of the pipe necessarily that goes under the bay. Is that correct?
Yes, that would be correct currently.
Okay, yeah. So it's not that we have all this capacity flowing down Gulf Boulevard and then it literally bottlenecks into a smaller pipe that doesn't get fixed. The problem is that we have this capacity flowing down Gulf Boulevard that goes to a pump that doesn't have the capacity to pump the volume. Okay, thank you.
Correct. Yep, and then that's really some of the components that's associated with that rehabilitation is
Right.
a lot of that infrastructure is going to remain in place. The upsizing of the pumps is
Yeah.
a major component of that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay to move on? So next, I want to touch on some of the areas of opportunity that we've seen so far. First is, performing a comprehensive enterprise utility rate analysis. I would recommend that we conduct that for all three utilities. I think the theme we've seen here is that we're underfunded in fees globally. As I understand, the last stormwater rate study was conducted in 2011. I'm not sure on when reclaim or wastewater study was last conducted. But really our goal would be, address current disparities and create a more balanced rate structure that's fair and equitable, but also, serves and supports our level of service. Next would be stormwater and wastewater system cleaning and televising system-wide. That'll help restore some of the capacity in the system and help us analyze the results of that data collected to plan for operational and maintenance as well as capital improvement projects moving forward. Propose to update our stormwater asset inventory and GIS. This will help us with our work order management. Currently, some of those baffle boxes and tide check valves, we don't have inventoried in that GIS environment. So getting those inventoried as well as the remaining balances of our infrastructure will help us plan forward for maintenance. Next would be securing contracts for our routine preventative maintenance. That'll be generator maintenance associated with our lift station, commercial diving services for our stormwater outfalls and tide check valves, and pump trucks and pump take services for our lift station wet well and manhole cleaning. I'm proposing that we restructure the organization structure within our Public Works Department to serve more efficiently. And also fill some of our budgeted personnel positions that are currently open. And ultimately, adopt level of service criteria based on our community needs. For instance, right now, I don't believe we have any adopted level of service to address tidal flooding. So that's something I would like to identify in a policy and get that adopted. And I think that can be accomplished with the update to our watershed management plan. And thank you for your time this evening. Open up for any other questions.
I have one question. I'll get to the question first, and then I'll get to the comment. Looking at these three major systems that we have and the significant budgetary deficiency that we've had for each one of them. And I know you haven't been around long enough, but is this something that is this year, or is this something that was the same thing happened last year, the year before, the year before?
I can't speak to that. Sorry.
Okay.
I would imagine it's probably a compounding issue.
Okay. City manager, if you don't mind, just looking at for the next time, just give us a. I would like to have an idea. So this is, again, I know you just came in, and Camden, you just came in as well, and I'm sure this is as shocking to you as it is to me and the commission here. But I would like to understand whether we had similar shortfalls in the previous years. And the reason I'm asking this information is because we were told that we had a $1.4 million surplus last year, and we actually did a millage tax rate reduction based on that good news. And we had a $1.3 million surplus the year before that. I'm trying to understand whether those surpluses were realized surpluses or just surpluses on paper because somebody was playing hide and seek with information. Okay, to my comment. I just want to say thank you to both you and the city manager. I know this information couldn't have been fun or easy to present. I appreciate the fact that, as Commissioner Mulholland said, you're trying to present the truth and they're not trying to sweep it under the rug and paint us a rosy picture here, because the picture is anything but rosy. I think when we're looking at the next 5 years, it's going to be incredibly difficult. The budgetary deficiencies that we have are somewhere in the $4 to $5 million based on simple, easy math here. And that's not including the $25 million we'll need, right? So that's just to get us to break even. And then we'll need another $25 million over the course of the next 5 years to address these major projects that we have. And that is if no other major projects happen, right? If nothing else comes, to light because of 2 major hurricanes that we've had. So I appreciate it, and I particularly appreciate the fact that you've put forth a plan on how to address the current deficiencies that we have by hiring additional staff, by looking at the rate studies, by looking at the budget and making sure that the commission has good and accurate information that we can base the decisions on that we need to make. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate you bring us information, and to Mr. Mulholland's point, I hope you'll be around for the next 5 years to help us, figuratively and literally clean up this mess. So thank you. Thank you.